it is an odd thing. I remember, look, if I was in high school and some guy goes, I'm going to be a wrestler, I think everybody would make fun of him. They'd laugh at him. I'm going to be a big actor in Hollywood. Yeah, Rosenbaum,
But and the funny thing is, like, you're laughing, but I mean, look, you went and did it, so you might understand. Like, it was years later, but when I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, and he was talking about how when he grew up in the little village in Graz, Austria, whatever it was, and he was telling everybody that he was going to be the greatest bodybuilder of all time and the biggest movie star of all time. They're like, what are you talking? Like a bodybuilder, movie star? You live in Graz, like wrestler, rock star, like you live in Winnipeg. How are you going to do that? Like, that's just stupid. So I always kind of got a laugh of, why does everybody care so much about what I want to do? Worry about your own shit and just kind of let me do my thing. I got really thick skin early on because of that. So even now, here we are 30 years later, when I come up with new ideas or projects or things I want to do, people don't laugh anymore, because once you've done it, they're kind of like, well, geez, he's kind of dangerous now. But in my mind, I still have to have this attitude of like, this can happen. You just got to roll with it, stick with it, and don't give up, because you can do it, but it's never easy. But it's always attainable for the most part.
Were you always fearless, or like growing up, first of all, you were probably a big kid, right? I look back and I see some old videos, like you had size to you, right?
Well, not really though. Like for now I do, but if you think about 1990, I'm 5'11". I was probably 190 pounds. I had a good muscle shape to me, but back in those times, wrestling was all about Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and, those type of guys that were, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, Jake the Snake. You see all these guys and they're legit 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Like that was just the style. And a guy like Bret Hart was considered a small guy. He was regulated to tag teams at that time. And meanwhile, he's 6'1", probably 230. So I wasn't big for the time. I was actually very small for wrestling. Now I'm not, because the business changed over the years to where smaller guys and more exciting wrestling, and size doesn't matter as much now. But back then, you could be the drizzling shits, but if you were 6'8", 300 pounds with, jacked up, you would get a shot.
Right.
It's not like that anymore. So, but that's when I realized, when I first got it started, like, I'll never be the biggest guy on the show, but I can work on having the biggest character, the biggest personality, and the biggest charisma, and kind of stick with that, which then enabled me to get a foothold. And then when I first started traveling overseas to Japan and Mexico in the early 90s, 92, 93, 94, that's the first time where I was working with other guys my size or smaller than me. And that's where size really didn't mean anything. You had to be in shape. But if you were 5'11" or 6'5" or 5'6", it didn't make a difference. So all of that it's kind of the journey to get to this point where you're learning and seeing these different styles and these different ways of doing things, because you're able to do it around the world and see that wrestling's not just this. Wrestling is many things to many people, just like acting is, or music, or stand-up comedy, or it's all about the talent that you have, not so much what your look is, because you can always fit into certain areas, but do you have the talent to be able to do that,